Imagine this: 22 Indian vessels stuck in the Persian Gulf, and they are carrying a whopping 2 lakh tons of LPG, 3.2 lakh tons of LNG, and a staggering 16 lakh tons of crude oil. And this is in the midst of Tehran getting bombarded by Israel and US on the auspicious day of Nowruz, which is the Persian or Iranian festival. And recently you might have heard that Iran, it attacked the Haifa refineries and Tel Aviv in Israel. And just today at around noon, it attacked the Mina Al Ahmadi refinery in Kuwait. And yesterday, what happened? Iran attacked the Qatar LNG terminal, which is supposed to be the largest export hub of LNG. That was in response to Israel's unprecedented attack on Pars gas field, which is the largest natural gas field in the world. Now, the ironical part is that, of course, we'll be discussing a lot of geopolitics and mapping also. US has denied responsibility as it always does under the leadership of the so-called Nobel laureate Donald Trump. So today's agenda, what we'll try to do is, because these attacks are not going to stop anytime soon. So what I try to discuss today will give you a different perspective. I'll try to give you and discuss different aspects of this Iran and the geopolitics which are connected with it. So, first of all, we'll discuss what exactly is going on in the Strait of Hormuz. That is, despite all these bombardments, you might have noticed in the news that the ships or the vessels or containers of some nations like India, Pakistan, Greece, China, and even Liberia, a West African nation, they have been getting tacit approval, a discrete approval from Iran to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, as indicated by the arrival of the Indian ships Shivalik and Nanda Devi on the Gujarat ports of Wadinar and Mundra recently. So we'll be discussing that although all this, so what diplomacy, Indian diplomacy with the Gulf regions, with the Arab states, they are playing a major role. Then we are going to discuss why is India dependent upon, so much dependent upon LPG, and how this blockage of Strait of Hormuz. Now remember, now this is not just a regional war, this has become a geopolitical global conflict. And earlier, we were just focused upon the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. But now, not only the logistics, not only the transport, but the energy infrastructure, the supply chain is in disruption. We'll discuss about that also. Then we'll basically discuss how LPG is different from PNG. Okay, this is a common confusion because LPG crisis is now there in India. Okay, restaurants are bearing the brunt, and LPG crisis is a real issue now. So we'll be discussing. You might have heard that government is pushing for the PNG connections and encouraging PNG connections in the households on a priority basis, and also restricting the use of LPG. Okay, we'll discuss what is petroleum, what is natural gas, some interesting scientific facts. So I'm trying to give you a holistic perspective, not just the geopolitical or the international relation part, but also science. We'll discuss somewhat about the induction cooker, which are being sold in hordes. Okay, on the then you should also observe, although there is an LPG crisis going on, but a lot of marketing, hoarding, the evil practices that are also going on, a lot of fear mongering, whether it be by politicians or some rumor mongers, they are also scaring. And I started today's lecture with the mention of Nowruz. This is a very important festival, Iranian festival, and we'll discuss how it is connected or embedded in the political and civilizational conscience of the Iranian people. Okay. So I was talking about, so this is the Shivalik. tanker which and the Nanda Devi tanker which passed the Strait of Hormuz. So India, examples of India which were allowed through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. Then Pakistan's Karachi tanker, Greece, there were two tankers, Shenlong, Sirmi, then China also, then Liberia, Minuan Sky. Okay, Minuan Sky you might have heard in the news. So some particular anomalies were observed. So this we have discussed. This is the Persian Gulf. This is the Gulf of Oman. In the previous lectures, I had told you the geographical definition also. This is the Strait of Hormuz. Now, ideally, what the ships do, they would try and take the shortest path out of this to carry the oil or the gas and then go through. But it was observed, two places were in news that these ships, particularly these Pakistani Liberian, they took a more circuitous or an elongated path near Iran. For example, through the instead of going through strait like this, they took a path closer to the Iranian shores. This Larak Island and Qeshm. This is the Qeshm Island. So these were the places in news. So they took this path. So some terms in news like what so these Pakistani tankers, they also have good diplomatic relations. Then even in what happens during the conflict time, the automatic identification system, it is switched off. So the ship, in a way, it literally goes dark. It cannot be identified, but it was allowed by the Iranian authorities to pass through. Similarly, the Chinese proclaimed, they simply might have said that we are the Chinese flag bearing ships, so let us pass. Okay, so this is one of the interesting anomalies that was in the news. Now, some important places, Kharg Island, uh, an important island consisting of the prime export petroleum machinery of Iran. This was attacked by US and Israel a few days back. And recently, what triggered such a massive retaliation by Iran on the Ras Laffan? Earlier, also, I had shown you via the map that Ras Laffan LNG plant, which is the largest LNG exporter hub. Okay, so it was attacked. It was in response to the attack of Israel on the South Pars gas field part. So this entire contains majorly the gas. Some amount of petroleum is also there. Now you can see this boundary. This boundary is interesting. Why it was? Because this is the international. This is the Qatar-Iran maritime border. Here it is Qatar and Iran. So this entire gas field is owned not only by Iran, the part which is owned by Qatar is known as North Dome. So if this this field is attacked, so in a way Qatar also feels threatened or attacked. Okay, and in response, I and Mr. Trump, he denied all plausible reasons or any responsibility. So here, so we are talking about Qatar. So here you can imagine in the map the Pars field on the north and the North Dome on the south belonging to Qatar. And this is the Kharg Island. So, like I said in the initial part of today's lecture, that it is no longer about containing the uranium enrichment or destroying the missile infrastructure or development of Iran. It has now progressed or deteriorated, in fact, I should say, into a much dangerous scale of global energy supply disruption, which is going to hit each and every sector. And remember, natural gas and petroleum, crude oil, don't just treat them as fuels. They are also, natural gas is also used for other industries as a feedstock for other industries such as petrochemical industries like plastics, fertilizer industry. So it is going to hit or disrupt a lot of sectors all across the world. In the chip manufacturing factories, the disruption of helium also. Okay, so all these byproducts, they are going to be affected. Here, this is the Kharg Island. Okay, this Bushehr region, this Shiraz, I've already discussed, they have been attacked. And this here city, Asaloe, in the Bushehr province of Iran, this is connected to the Pars gas field. To the Pars gas field. So there is a another type of gas, sour gas, which is transported to this. This was also bombarded by US and Israel. Okay, so these are the important places. Then recently in Kuwait, here the Ahmadi. So here there is also, it is a rich gas field. So this refinery, petroleum and natural gas, this Mina Al Ahmadi refinery was attacked today. Then this in retaliation, of course, Iran, it keeps bombarding Tel Aviv, the important cities, and Haifa, important refineries and important port city of Israel. Okay, fine. So this is what is going on. So it contains 51, just to start, 51 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. So this Ras Laffan, what happened is, so some stats in perspective. So here, this is a picture of the desalination plant. It has also come under fire. See, Gulf states, you know, they are dry states. The only major commodity they have is oil, petroleum, and natural gas. So, for freshwater sources are scarce. They depend on desalination plant. This is an example of desalination plant in the Gulf states. They depend heavily on the conversion or the desalinization of the seawater for drinking or domestic purposes. So this is also one of the major repercussions or the disadvantages that the war has caused to the Gulf state. The civilization is also getting affected. Now, we'll the recent attack on the LNG terminal, some stats again, if we discuss. So, it is estimated that 12.8 million tons of LNG supply per year has been affected, and this contributes, it amounts to almost 17% of the total LNG supply. So, that is the extent of the aftermath of Iran's attacks on the oil refineries or the LNG plant in Qatar. Then the QatarEnergy has declared this clause force majeure or invoked this clause. This clause is a part of contract law, just additional bits which I also learned. So it says this clause is declared when the company, for in this instance QatarEnergy, it says that boss, this is an unprecedented, unforeseen circumstances like war or riot or epidemic. So I cannot fulfill my obligation to supply gas to you. Okay, so obviously LNG, there are various companies like energy companies, EDF, okay, Italy, this Belgium, Edison, Italy. They are not based there, but they have the important locations. Then Kogas, South Korea, ExxonMobil, okay, America, they are also present abroad in other countries also. Then Shell, the British company, but also the locations in China. So all these relations, all these supply chains are getting adversely affected. Now, some more stats. Okay, so already we know that LPG gas supply is getting affected. It has been estimated that from the pre West Asia conflict levels, LPG supply has declined to the rate of 13%. This helium, which is used in the semiconductor industry, chip industry, it is also produced as a component of the fossil fuel extraction, that is petroleum and natural gas. It has gone down to the extent of 14%. The LNG, it has gone down to the extent of 24%. Other components like sulfur and naphtha, okay, these are additives. Naphtha is an additive. This has also gone down by 6%. Okay. Now, before discussing some science, where does India stand? Why is India facing such a severe crunch or scarcity of LPG? First of all, when it comes to crude oil, let's discuss from the start, crude oil or petroleum. India imports 88% of its crude oil needs. Okay. Then out of that, 40 to 50% of the crude oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz. Fine. Then when it comes to LPG, India imports 60% of its total LPG requirements, but 90% of that LPG needs it comes from 90% of the LPG needs it comes from the Hormuz and Qatar itself. Okay, so that is why LPG this LPG has higher stakes. I'll also discuss other regions why it is disadvantageous in case of LPG. Then, in case of LNG, also, we have already discussed LNG before. So, in case of LNG, also, although if we consider the natural gas, because LNG is a type of natural gas, when natural gas is cooled to minus 162 degrees Celsius, it liquefies. Okay, so these LNG, CNG, PNG, they are some or the other forms of natural gas itself. We'll discuss in detail. So, natural gas, India reduces 50% of its LNG or natural gas requirement in general. Okay, although Qatar is the largest export hub of LNG, but for natural gas, India has its own deposits and it is not entirely dependent on Qatar or other Gulf states to ensure maximum supply. It can also import the natural gas from countries like Australia, Russia. Okay, so these countries, these diversity is also there in case of LNG, or we can say natural gas. So these are some of the stats why India, okay, how India stands vis-a-vis the world. Okay. Now this is something interesting to better understand why LPG is much now facing the crunch as compared to PNG users. For example, in my home, I have a PNG connection, but still a significant proportion of Indian households already they are still transitioning from the use of conventional or rudimentary fuels like biomass, coal to LPG. You might recognize or recall some government schemes like the Ujjwala scheme Yojana. So that depends of LPG. I remember when I was little a toddler, the LPG gas cylinders they used to come. Okay, now the major disadvantage. Now we'll discuss first basically all these products. So basically, this natural gas, important science bit. It would be interesting. You have studied this in school. So, natural gas and petroleum, they are both fossil fuels and they are formed from the decomposition and burial of the fossils or the remains of marine plants and animal sediments under great amount of heat and pressure. Okay, so they get converted into fuels. This is a sedimentary rock shale normally associated. This rock contains normally the petroleum and natural gas, and often this natural gas and petroleum they are found in conjunction with one another. So by that I mean that where crude oil we find crude oil, it is a high probability that we find natural gas also. Okay, and there is water also. This is they are trapped between two layers of impervious rocks. Impervious means if they are non-porous in a way, because if they were porous the storage would not be there. Simple. Okay, now this is the I'll just this is the composition of natural gas in general. Okay, now just pay this is interesting, that is why I'm discussing. So you can see here that in case of natural gas, majority part is methane. Fuel is methane. Okay. Then other proportions we have ethane, propane, butane, condensates. Condensate is also a low viscosity liquid often found in conjunction with natural gas. It is a byproduct when natural gas is uh, produced, processed, and some impurities like nitrogen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, sulfide, and helium. So this methane is this. So when we talk about the main component of the fuels like CNG, PNG, LNG, the main component which is involved is methane. The other hydrocarbons, okay, hydrocarbons. So you might have remember in chemistry. So there was this symbol CnH2n plus 2. Okay, so basically this is CH4. Okay, methane, then C2H6, then C3H8, then C4H10, and so on. Okay, so this is methane. On the other hand, if we look here, I can explain to you. On the other hand, if we consider LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, it is obtained from petroleum, not natural gas. It is different from natural gas, and it basically comprises of propane and butane. Okay, and this is one reason why LPG is heavier as compared to PNG. Okay, now just let me clarify what all terms this is. Basically, LPG, when I say LPG is liquefied petroleum gas. There is a process known as fractional distillation. Okay, so where petroleum or crude oil, it goes through a heater, there is a fractionating column, and where different components of petroleum are segregated or differentiated into different compartments, and then they are extracted. So this is in decreasing density and boiling point. So first, so when it is heated, they become the petroleum crude oil becomes vapor, and they, because they have different boiling points, so they condense at different temperatures. So from the top we get LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, then we get naphtha, we get petrol or gasoline, then we get kerosene, paraffin oil, aviation fuel, then we get this diesel, lubricating oil, fuel oil, and this is residue, bitumen, asphalt for roads and construction purposes. Okay, so this LPG is this, and natural gas is this. Again, in that, the natural gas, if it is cooled to 162 degrees Celsius, it becomes liquefied, and we call this LNG. When we compress that natural gas to a certain temperature, to a certain pressure, and uses it as a fuel in buses in Delhi or in other states, the auto rickshaw CNG, it is known as compressed natural gas. When we supply the natural gas domestically or commercially through pipes, it becomes piped natural gas. So I hope the explanation is simple. Now, what the issue basically is, why LPG is at a disadvantage. First of all, LPG, to create LPG, high pressure, it has to be stored under high pressure and low temperature. Okay. To store it as a liquid in gas cylinders, because as soon as the glass cylinder, the valve of the cylinder, LPG cylinder is opened, it vaporizes, it becomes a gas. So in order to contain it, we require cylinders. Next, we require the processing is costly. Okay. Then logistics. See, this natural gas, it can be, once it is processed or once it is extracted or once it is brought from other export LNG export terminals, it can be sent through pipes for commercial or domestic purposes. But LPG first has to be stored, it has to be processed, then it has to be stored, and then it has to be packed in cylinders to supply. So this is the major cause. And of course, we have already discussed that out of 60% of its LPG needs, 95%, 90% travels to the Strait of Hormuz. So it is less diversified as compared to PNG. Less diversified, and also it is still in a significantly used in countries like India. So all these restaurants, these dhabas, etc., these food businesses, these are eateries, they are getting adversely affected. Okay. So I hope this was a bit interesting. One other interesting fact, if you remember in school, you studied because LPG is basically odorless. But if LPG leaks or if you turn on the stove without lighting, without igniting the flame, then it gives off an odor or smell that is because of an additive or chemical known as ethyl mercaptan. Okay, this is added so as to detect leaks. Okay. Okay, one minor interesting factor. So recently, you might have heard because of LPG crisis, or even if there wasn't any crisis, people wanted to create one, so they started hoarding or purchasing these induction cookers. So little bit we'll discuss physics in this. So basically, what is this? Is a novel technology. It is highly efficient as compared to the conventional fuels like natural gas or LPG. Okay, 90% efficiency. Moreover, it uses the current and the magnetism principles in physics. So what I'll discuss in basic terms, I don't want to boast my knowledge or anything. So basically, there is a copper coil, electric coil through which alternating AC current passes 240 volts. Okay. And this current, when passes, it produces an electromagnetic field around it. When this electromagnetic field comes in contact with this induction surfaces, a surface like ceramic surface, which is suited or tailored for induction, small currents known as eddy currents, they are produced. Okay. And these currents in turn, they start heating the pan, which is made of any metal, any any aluminum, copper, etc. Any so ceramic surfaces. This is made up of basically ferromagnetic material. So this is the now the advantages is initial setup is cost is high, but ultimately because it gets highly efficient, it is high efficient. More of the electricity, almost all electricity is getting converted into heat energy, so there is very less energy loss. In the case of LPG or PNG, the fossil fuel or the fuel which we are used, only a certain amount, a certain portion of that is lost as heat. So not all of it is utilized in cooking or industry or in other purposes. Moreover, if you have ever used this kind of setup, this surface, this ceramic surface, it does not get heated up. Okay, so even when current is passed through this coil which is situated below this surface, it does not get heated up. Only the eddy currents are produced on this surface, and the only thing which is getting heated is this Teflon pan. Okay, so this is an advantage of induction cookers. Okay, one more difference just came to my mind between LPG and PNG, natural gas, is that although this LPG is heavier because it contains of heavier hydrocarbons, propane and butane, this primarily contains methane. Okay, so it is heavier. More importantly, LPG has a higher calorific value. What this means is the same mass of LPG produces same mass. If we take same masses or same amount of LPG and PNG, LPG will produce higher amount of heat. But that does not mean that it is the perfect fuel or a suitable fuel, taking into consideration all chemistry, physics, the storage. I've already discussed that in the previous slide. Okay. Now, this I mentioned. So today I'm recording this lecture. So today is the New Year, Persian New Year, that is the festival of Nowruz according to the Iranian solar calendar. And you might have heard often there is a confusion between the Parsis and Jews. So they are different. Okay, Parsis are basically an ethno-linguistic group. So they speak the Parsi language or Farsi. For example, your mom might have told you that if you are not understanding anything, so she says that मैं क्या फारसी बोल रही हूँ. So that is Farsi. Okay, and the religion that they follow is Zoroastrianism. Okay, Zoroaster, the god. So this, in my one of my previous lectures also I discussed this religion. It predates Islam, Christianity, Judaism. Okay, it is said some scholars believe that this Zoroastrianism has influenced Judaism or the religion of the Jews, but it is different. Okay, some difference. So in India, so example for Persia. So Persia, all this you can say the they are connected. Okay, and during 7th century CE or AD, the Islamic conquest took place in the Persian lands. The land, although Persia covers a much larger place, it is in a regional context, but it majorly comprises what is today's country, the Republic of Iran. So initially, these Persians they followed this religion during 7th century Islamic conquest. A lot of them got converted into Islam, and then because of persecution, some of the a lot of Parsis, they also fled eastwards and they found refuge or asylum in countries like India. Okay, this Judaism, Islam, Christianity, they originated. If I show you the map, this region is basically the Persia. Okay, this Iran. And this Levant region, the Eastern Mediterranean part, this is the place of birth, we can say, of Judaism, okay, and also associated with Christianity and Islam. Okay, so what is important is on Wednesday. Okay, so last Wednesday before Nowruz is also known as Scarlet Wednesday. So this last Wednesday before Nowruz, it is also known as the festival of Shahar Shanbe Turi, also known as the fire festival. So this is denoted by this picture. So people they either jump over the fires or they stay in close proximity to remove illness or evil spirits. Okay, so this in turn we can say that Nowruz is identical or shares its philosophy with Indian festivals like Holi and Diwali, which also these both are public festivals and they both indicate the symbol of purity, the victory of light over darkness. So why I have this, and obviously this is also the holy month of Ramzan, and we see I'm not talking in particular about any religion. Like I said about Persia, it is actually the language, the ethnicity which connects, like Bengalis, Punjabis. So, in this holy atmosphere, in this symbolic atmosphere, all this attacks and war is going on. So this is inauspicious. Now, how this Nowruz, the important thing is how this Nowruz is finding its recollection in the psyche of the Iranian citizens. Now, you know that there was the Pahlavi dynasty. The last ruler was the Muhammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, whose son is still alive. He's Reza Shah. So not just because that you know that in 1979, when the Islamic Revolution took place, the Muhammad Reza Shah Pahlavi dynasty was overthrown, and the first supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, came into power and established the Islamic Republic of Iran, the theocratic state. I'm not I'm not posing one religion against another, the Zoroastrianism against Islam or Jewish or the Judaism against Islam. I'm talking about how these politics and religion they get juxtaposed and overlap with each other. So, like I discussed in the previous, during the Shah dynasty, the major problem was the suppression of dissent. The mosque became the place of debate or discussions, and that is why it became the hub. The Islamic Republic of Iran was founded. But over the last few months or over the last year, a lot of protests are being conducted by the Iranian citizens. A lot of them also enjoyed or celebrated the death of the supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Okay, so that was is also due to the suppression of dissent. So this now rose when the Islamic Republic of Iran came into place. The Ayatollah Ruhollah Khamenei, he started issuing a lot of fatwas and also prohibited celebrating this festival, this cultural festival which is embedded in the Persians, this Nowruz, because according to him, it did not agree with the Islamic precedents or Islamic fundamentals. But now, what this Reza Shah is doing is people like him, and also due to the upcoming that civil dissent among the Iranian citizens, this this is an opportunity for the Iranian citizens to recollect that cultural collectiveness, the bonding, the homogeneity, the sacrosanct nature of Nowruz, which used to connect them. Okay, so ultimately, like I talk about the Basant. So in Pakistan, province of Punjab, also Basant is frowned upon. It is decried, but still, it is a place. It is an occasion for people to get together, to not forget their roots, to not forget their identity. So now, at the end of all this war, this destruction is going on. Now it is up to the Iranian citizens, because ultimately Trump or Netanyahu cannot actually according to me, guide or provide a solid foundation for the growth and progress of a country like Iran. It is the citizens, whether they want to be connected by a theocratic state or some religion based state, or whether they want to go back to their roots of the Persian culture, celebrate festivals, and then gather themselves together, then unite and firmly found again a new beginning, a new year, we can say, like Nowruz, start of a new year, the vernal equinox, just like a new regime or a new destiny for Iran. So till we meet again next time, Jai Hind.